abstraction on the rest of them. And I want to understand where I have confidence in the data. And so what I want to look at is coverage. So how much of the corrosion circuit has been looked at in terms of lines? So can we say that something is representative? I also want to look at the repeat inspection percentage. Because we're going to be looking at corrosion rates and remaining lives, these require at least 2 measurements on a given test point to be calculated. You need that to draw a line between them. As such, the percentage of re-inspected test points is a very good indicator of how representative those corrosion rates and remaining lives will be. We'll also want to look at the extreme data percentage. If we have a large percentage of extreme data, as you can see in some of these circuits, it means that we have a lot of outliers, and so maybe we can't actually take what we're seeing with the good data as truly representative. This is behaving abnormally as a whole circuit. Because, as we can see here, the bad actor is generally a repeat inspection percentage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this sorting and filtering button to see which ones have the highest repeat inspection percentage. Immediately looking through and ignoring things like stainless steel corrosion circuits 316, you can see that PG07 is actually looking very good across the board. So we've got more than 50% line coverage, which is most certainly sufficient. We've got approximately a quarter of test points re-inspected, which may seem low, but that's actually quite high in general, and it gives enough of an idea that we can start making some judgments on corrosion rates. We also have a very low 1.8% extreme data percentage, which actually, if you look at the number of CMLs here, that means that there is 1 extreme data CML in the entire corrosion circuit. What I'm also looking at here are the maximum and 97.5 percentile corrosion rates. This is obviously the maximum is pretty obvious. The 97.5 percentile is partially statistical, saying what is potentially a representative upper end. And what we see here is there's very little actual difference between them, whereas on some of the other corrosion circuits we see a far larger difference. What this means in practice is that corrosion is in general quite uniform, and so we can have good confidence there. And the remaining lives bear this out. We see minimum as 166 years, that's a long way in the future, and the 2.5 percentile is 168 years, so very little actual difference there, even a really big number. So what we can say is this is actually looking, aside from one piece of extreme data, like a really clear example of good data, good confidence in data, good confidence in the way that the circuit is behaving, and the way that the circuit is behaving is very much no threat. However, we probably want to dive a little bit further into this just to make sure of that. And also, we need to bear in mind what we're seeing over here, which is that last inspection was over 10 years ago. So if I come into the visualizations, what we've seen there is very much a snapshot, and it's looking solely really at per test point trending. What we also want to see is the corrosion circuit as a whole behaving in a nice consistent way? We think it probably is going to be based on those, but can we confirm it? So what I'm going to want to do there is I'm going to look first up at the box plot of this circuit. I'm going to filter the box plot here. This is wall loss by year on PG07, which I should add, and I probably should have said this before, is a dry, it's a wet gas but a high temperature wet gas circuit. What we see here is that aside from a few little outliers of actually high wall thickness and low wall loss, above nominal wall thickness, things are looking pretty consistent over time. So that's actually very good. And we're actually seeing here as well that the medians are pretty well in the middle. Things are looking quite symmetrical. That's implying that things are quite similar potentially to an actual normal distribution. To check that out even further, we can go to a normal probability plot. And again, this is showing it year on year, and at the moment it's for an entire asset, so I'm going to filter that back down again onto PG07. And what we see here, going by orange being 2010, then red 2011, green 2012, and there's only a couple of data points from 2013 which are difficult to see, but if I make it light mode, you'll see them better. One there, one there. Actually, these are all pretty straight lines. There's a bit of a curve in 2010, and maybe a little bit of a curve in 2012. 2011 is almost a perfectly straight line. So what we're seeing here, this being a normal probability plot, a straight line implies that the corrosion circuit is acting in a normal, literally, manner. This is the kind of distribution you'd see if there were just random variations in wall thickness. Say if there were actually no real wall loss, something which is borne out by the fact that the maximum corrosion rate seen for those test points which have multiple inspections against them was 0.03 millimeters per year. So by looking at the overall statistics of the corrosion circuit, and then also at the by looking at just the overall indicators and KPIs for the circuit, and then looking at actual statistical views, so rather than what we call stats, this is actually genuinely statistics, we are seeing all indicators of uniform and consistent behavior being there. So we can say that actually, based on past performance, we can have really high confidence in the behavior of this corrosion circuit. And given that even if we were to take a half-life approach, even if we were to take a quarter-life approach, we would be well into the decades, we could potentially be doing without inspecting this corrosion circuit at all, if, and only if, its behavior remains consistent. And that is where alert comes in.